From the Front Range of the beautiful Rocky Mountains in northern Colorado, it is Friday, September 25th, 2020, and this is Truly News. I am your host, Jason Van Sickle. I hope that your week has gone well. It is Friday, so for many it is the end of the work week. For those of you who work weekends, hopefully you will have some time this weekend to relax. Don't forget that paying attention to your emotional and mental health is important. Make time to get out and get some exercise. Fresh air and simple exercise, like walking, have a positive effect on your mental and physical state. As always, we start this podcast with a look at the day's top headlines, so on to the news. First, in honor of the president, here is our fake news headline for the day. President Trump has announced that he is considering nominating himself as the next Supreme Court justice, but he is waiting to hear from legal advisors. He really likes the $255,000 that justices are paid annually as a part of their lifetime appointment. But he first wants to know if justices can work remotely, like from a golf course, and submit decisions via Twitter. Moving on to the day's real headlines. From the New York Times, federal judge bars Trump administration from ending census early. The ruling says the census, which was delayed for months because of the coronavirus, needs more time to get an accurate count. From USA Today, 34 men have received the honor of lying in state at the Capitol. Justice Ginsburg is the first woman. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg made history one final time Friday as she became the first woman and Jewish person to lie in state at the U.S. Capitol. By the way, lying in state is a tradition where the coffin containing the body of a highly respected official is placed inside the State Building so mourners can come and pay their respect. The honor of laying in state inside the U.S. Capitol building is a rare honor. As History.com notes, since 1852, 35 individuals have received the high honor of laying in state. 12 presidents, 2 vice presidents, plus members of Congress, military heroes, and U.S. Supreme Court justices. From NPR, Trump questions election again after White House walked back his earlier remarks. President Trump resumed questioning the integrity of this year's election on Thursday after the White House sought to walk back his earlier comments suggesting he might not accept the results if he were to lose. And those are your top headlines from across the country. To lighten things a bit, it is now time for our daily Top 5 Joke Countdown. These jokes come from Reader's Digest at rd.com, which has an archive of thousands of jokes. Warning, some of these jokes have been altered in a completely foolish effort on my part to make them funnier. Our category today is Funny Doctor's Stories, and here is your top 5 countdown. Number 5. Trying to exercise a good bedside manner, an intern in the emergency room walked up and greeted a patient by saying, "So, what brings you here today?" The elderly patient, looking a bit confused, turned to the doctor and said, "What do you think brought me here?" "An ambulance." Number 4. It was Friday, and having just finished his work week, Harry headed to the doctor for the results of some recent tests. "Harry," the doctor said, "I have some good news and I have some bad news. Which do you want first?" "Well," Harry said, "I suppose the good news." "Okay, here it is. You have 48 hours to live." "What?" exclaimed Harry. "If that's the good news, then what is the bad news?" "Well," said the doctor, "I probably should have given you those results when I got them on Wednesday." Number 3. My 58-year-old grandfather was rushed to the hospital with a possible concussion. The doctor asked him a series of questions. "Do you know where you are?" Yes, I'm at Rex Hospital." "What city are you in?" "Raleigh." "Do you know who I am?" "Sure, Dr. Hamilton." My grandfather then turned to the nurse and said, "I hope that's all of the questions, because that's all of the information that he has on his name tag." Number 2. On her first night caring for an elderly patient, a new nurse had to put the sleeping man into bed. Rolling the wheelchair as close to the bed as possible, she used a technique that she had learned in school. She grasped him in a bear hug to lift him and roll him onto the bed, which took several tries. However, she finally succeeded. When the night shift nurse arrived, she proudly recounted what she had done. The nurse replied, "That's funny. I usually just ask him to get into bed." And he does. And your number one joke for the day? Before we headed off to Mexico on vacation, our family went to the doctor for advice on what we need to do to keep from getting sick. The doctor told us that we simply need to drink plenty of fluids with carbohydrates and electrolytes. "What's that?" asked my 4-year-old daughter. "Well," said the doctor, "it's drinks with sugar and salt." "Oh," she replied, "like a margarita." Well, those are your funny doctor's stories. Hopefully they made you crack a smile, or at least lightened your heart a little bit today. Moving on, we now take a look at today's other headlines, starting with science and technology news. From the Today Show, asteroid size of an RV discovered zooming past Earth. NASA discovered an asteroid said to be roughly the size of an RV zooming past Earth. Al Roker reports that it might disturb a few satellites, but it will ultimately not disturb the planet. In space news, NASA is taking the next step in its efforts to promote commercialization of space by flying a cosmetic company's products to the International Space Station. Estee Lauder is paying $128,000 to have bottles of its face cream photographed in the windows of the space station that overlook Earth. From Popular Science, Amazon's fall 2020 products announcements include a security camera drone that flies around your house. At its annual event to announce new products, Amazon announced a new Echo, a redesigned Eero, Ring security devices for cars, and a security camera drone that can patrol your house. These are just a few of the many devices that Amazon plans to unveil as we head into the holiday season. And that is your science and technology news for today. In health news, from the Houston Chronicle, how analyzing sewage helped Houston catch a COVID hotspot. Researchers from the city, Rice University, and Baylor College of Medicine were able to snuff out a potential second outbreak of COVID-19 at a homeless shelter in downtown Houston earlier this week by looking down its drains instead of into people's noses. From Healthline.com, why your insurance company pays 250% more than what Medicaid pays to the same health service providers. A new study published by RAND Corporation finds that private insurers pay much higher prices for medical services than Medicare does. Researchers found no strong link between hospital pricing and healthcare quality or safety ratings. From the Washington Post, child deaths from COVID-19 remained remarkably low 8 months into the U.S. pandemic. And those are your health headlines. In entertainment news, starting with new movies, the Washington Post reports the documentary Oliver Sacks, His Own Life is true to its title. The film uses Sacks himself to tell most of the tale, and it is available at AFI.com or virtualavalon.org. Whatever happened to Judd Nelson? You'll find the Brat Pack veteran playing a small role as a teacher in Iceland is Best, an English-language drama about the Icelandic teenager from a remote fishing village who dreams of moving to California to write poetry, which is available on various streaming platforms. Under the category of new shows, Entertainment Tonight reports that Filthy Rich, starring Kim Cattrall, is a new show about a widowed matriarch of a super-rich family that runs a Christian television network, dealing with life after the head of the family, who started the network, dies. This show airs Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. And Utopia. John Cusack leads the Amazon series that revolves around a group of young adults who meet online and are mercilessly haunted by a shadowy deep state organization after they come into possession of a near mythical cult underground graphic novel. That show premieres today on Amazon's Prime Video. And looking at newly published books, from the New York Times, the selected works of Audre Lorde. Lorde, who died in 1992 at 58, was a poet, essayist, genre-defined memoirist, and activist. This book brings together a vast selection of her poetry, 12 pieces of prose, essays, and a long excerpt from her memoir, The Cancer Journals. Quote, "Any opportunity to contemplate Lorde would be a cause for celebration," unquote, says New York Times critic Siegel. From the New York Post, Divided We Fall, a non-fiction book from author David French. The country is divided, and the polarity will only continue if left unchecked, says French, who presents a vision for how the country can come together again and embrace national unity. And that is your entertainment news for the day. As always, we end our broadcast with a look at what we call Happy News. These are headlines from across the country of people doing good. And in our Happy News headlines today, from TV station NBC DFW5 in Dallas, Dallas-based app helps feed 4 million people. They consider themselves a company with a purpose. Tango Tab started in the Dallas area 8 years ago with the mission to not only run a successful company, but also to shine a light on hunger in communities across the country. Quote, "We started in 2011, and throughout the years, the team has built it up. People use our app, they dine out, they check in, and every time they do that, we feed a person in need. Today, we have fed a lot of people by doing that," unquote, says Nick Marino Jr. According to the company website, quote, "Tango Tab founder Andre Angel wanted to create a fun and simple way to solve a serious, massive problem. He wanted to combat hunger by providing a meal to a local food charity every time he paired a hungry customer with an empty table at a restaurant. What began as a complex issue evolved into a solvable problem," unquote. Tango Tab makes money through advertisers. The app download and usage is free to consumers. Consumers can check in at more than 100,000 restaurants on the app. Every time someone does, Tango Tab feeds a person in need. Today, they have fed more than 4 million people. From Wichita, Kansas, a Girl Scout troop shows kindness to homeless men. Due to COVID, it has been difficult this year for the Girl Scouts to engage in their annual cookie sale. So, Girl Scout Troop 40364 in Wichita, Kansas decided if they couldn't sell their cookies, then they would do some good by giving them away. Searching for area nonprofits, they set out on a mission to bring smiles to people through the gift of cookies. One of those organizations was the Union Rescue Mission. That organization provides shelter to homeless men and tries to help them transition into permanent housing. In addition to the boxes of cookies, the girls included handwritten notes encouraging the mission's staff and thanking them for the good work that they do. After receiving the cookies and visiting with the troop members, Doug Nolte, head of Union Rescue Mission, told KMUW's public radio, quote, "This troop in particular is a pretty special group because they've been together since 4th grade and they are seniors in high school. They are a mentoring group that wants to pass on to the other Girl Scout troops what it means to be good citizens. We're grateful that they thought of us." I have to say, the city of Wichita is lucky to have such a great group of young women serving as mentors to other Girl Scouts. And from the West Central Tribune in Wilmer, Minnesota, a smile and a wave leads to kindness. Vinny Rominger likes to honk and wave at people. The young man says that it makes him feel good when they wave back. One person that he would regularly honk and wave at was an older man that sat in his driveway every day watching cars pass. Vinny often passed the man on his way home from work and had honked and waved many times. One day, he decided to stop and say hi. What he found was someone who was excited to have a visitor. George doesn't get out much these days other than sitting outside in his driveway. However, on this day he made a new friend as Vinny and George spent over an hour visiting. One of the things that Vinny learned was that George was about to turn 100 years old. When asked what he would like for his birthday, George told Vinny that it would simply be nice if more people drove by and honked and waved just as Vinny had done. Inspired, Vinny went on to Facebook and told his story, asking people to drive by George's house on his birthday simply to honk and wave. He never imagined the response that post would generate. On his birthday, George was sitting outside once again, and to his surprise, car after car drove by with friendly, smiling faces, honking and waving. Vinny was there to share the experience with George, and the two men have gone on to become best friends. And that is your news for September 25th, 2020. Have a great day.